An elderly woman donated her last coins, and the miracle that followed left everyone in tears. Martha gave everything she had out of pure faith, never imagining that heaven was preparing an unimaginable blessing for her. Ancient secrets, a mysterious inheritance, and a spring of water transformed her life and that of an entire community. A story that proves generosity never truly impoverishes. Prepare to be moved, leave a like, and comment where you're watching this blessed story from. In a small town deep in Appalachia, where the church bell still marks the rhythm of life, a 68-year-old woman named Martha extends a trembling hand to deposit her last few coins into the donation box at the local parish. The afternoon sun filters through the stained glass windows, painting her wrinkled skin with hues of blue and red, as if heaven itself were blessing that moment of surrender. Those few coins, worn smooth by time, like the hands holding them, represented all she had left after a life of hard work and strict saving. The elderly woman's eyes, a deep brown like the earth she had always tilled, hesitated for just a second over the coins. Would that amount be enough to buy the medicine for her arthritis that tormented her so much on cold nights? Or perhaps she could save it for an emergency as her mother had taught her? But something inside her, a flame of faith that even the strongest winds of life couldn't extinguish, whispered louder than any doubt. Without further hesitation, she deposited her last financial reserve, moved by that unwavering faith that had sustained her since childhood. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," she murmured to herself, as her gnarled fingers released the coins, which fell with an almost musical metallic sound as they joined the others at the bottom of the carved wooden box. What Martha couldn't imagine, nor could she have imagined in her most hopeful dreams, was that this simple act of generosity would trigger an extraordinary series of events that would completely transform her life over the next 12 months. On that warm January afternoon, as the cicadas sang incessantly in the oak trees on the town square, and the smell of fresh coffee wafted from the windows of the whitewashed houses, a story of everyday miracles began to unfold. Known by everyone in town as Martha Green Thumb, a nickname earned for her ability to make any plant flourish even in the most ungrateful soil, her gaze held the perfect blend of unparalleled kindness and stubbornness that impressed even the youngest. She was one of those rare people who managed to see the good even in the most challenging situations, as if she had received the divine gift of finding pearls hidden in fields of stone. But in those days, even her resilient faith faced a painful, internal conflict. How to maintain unwavering hope when life seems to conspire against your dreams. How to keep believing when the cupboards were bare and the bills piled up on the kitchen table. Questions that weighed on her shoulders, already stooped by decades of farm work, but never weighed enough to bend her moral backbone. That same afternoon, returning to her modest house with broken shingles and peeling paint at the end of Dogwood Lane, Martha noticed something unusual in the rusty mailbox. A brown envelope with her name written in formal letters. Her hands, accustomed to pulling weeds and kneading dough, trembled slightly as she opened the formal correspondence, so different from the occasional letters from her children who had left for the city seeking opportunities. A lawyer from a nearby town, on official letterhead with a flourished signature, informed her that she had been included in the will of a former employer for whom she had worked as a cook decades ago, Mr. Arthur Evans, owner of Redemption Creek Farm, who had passed away 2 months prior. The initial surprise made her heart race like it hadn't since her youth. Could it be possible? How could someone so wealthy, someone she had prepared meals for only 3 years, remember her after all this time? Suspicion, the inevitable companion of those who have been deceived by life, whispered in her ear. Could this be some kind of scam? Dear Lord, could this be true or just an illusion? She wondered, placing the envelope on the wooden table marked by decades of use, next to the picture of the Virgin Mary her mother had given her on her wedding day. Night fell over the small town like a velvet star-studded cloak, and Martha's thoughts danced restlessly like fireflies. Memories of Redemption Creek Farm surfaced in her mind. The huge wood-burning stove where she prepared treats for the wealthy, landowners who visited her boss, the aroma of caramel bubbling in copper pots, Mr. Evans's discreet smile upon tasting her chicken and dumplings with cornbread. Were these memories now the bridge to a new phase of her life? During the annual summer festival, when the whole town gathers around bonfires and the sky is lit by fireworks, Martha shared the news with her childhood friend Louise, while they both shucked corn for the corn pudding at the church bazaar. "Girl, that's no coincidence. That's divine. Providence!" exclaimed Louise, her eyes shining as brightly as the fireworks illuminating the sky. "Remember when you told me you prayed for Mr. Evans every day, even after you left the farm? Well, true prayer always comes back to the one who prays." The flames of the bonfires seemed to point a new way forward for Martha, while the smell of roasted corn and cinnamon from the food stalls brought back memories of more prosperous times. The country music played by the local band seemed to sway her hesitation until it turned into courage. Going against her cautious nature, she decided to investigate the inheritance. "If it's God's will, let it be done," she told Louise, as they tied the corn husks for the pudding together, a gesture they had repeated since childhood, when their mothers taught them the secrets of Appalachian cooking. 2 days later, using the savings she had kept for emergencies, and what could be more of an emergency than a potential life change, Martha boarded the only bus connecting her town to the regional city. The old vehicle rattled along the 45, miles of rough dirt roads and patched asphalt, carrying hopes as precious as they were fragile. Arriving at the luxurious office in the city, with marble floors reflecting her own apprehensive face and ornamental plants, she silently identified as Boston ferns and peace lilies. Martha, dressed in her best outfit, a faded floral dress, and a scarf on her head, felt as out of place as a violet in the desert. Even so, she straightened her spine and lifted her chin, as her grandmother had taught her. "We may be poor, but we hold our heads high." The lawyer, a man in an impeccable suit and gold-rimmed glasses, received her with a cordial formality that surprised her. She wasn't used to being treated with such deference by educated folks, as she called those who had attended college. "Mrs. Martha, it's an honor to finally meet you. Mr. Evans spoke of you with great admiration," he said, indicating a leather armchair for her to sit in. The words that followed changed the course of her existence forever. She had inherited a small rural property of 5 acres that Mr. Evans had kept as a secondary investment, separate from his main farm. The lawyer explained that her former boss had always admired her work ethic and unquestionable honesty, and that on his deathbed, he had insisted that the cook who prayed for her boss be rewarded. "He used to say you made the best caramel candy in the state, and that alone deserved a piece of land," the lawyer commented with a discreet smile, handing over the official inheritance documents. The yellowed paper with official seals trembled in Martha's hands. Rural property? She, who had lived her entire life in rented or borrowed houses, would now own a piece of America? The tears streaming silently down her wrinkled face were like raindrops after a long drought, painful in their intensity, but bringing the promise of renewal. When Martha visited the property the next day, accompanied by the lawyer, she found not a productive farm as she had imagined in her dreams, but abandoned land covered in tall weeds with a dilapidated main house, its roof partially collapsed and windows broken. Around it, a few resilient fruit trees, apple, peach, and pear trees seemed to be the only permanent inhabitants, along with various birds that created a natural symphony to welcome her. The initial disappointment was visible in her eyes. What would a woman nearing 70 do with a piece of abandoned land? How could she transform those ruins into something useful, without resources or physical strength for heavy labor? As she walked the property, her feet sinking slightly into the damp earth after the previous night's rain, something strange happened. An almost forgotten sensation, one she hadn't felt since her youth, began to grow in her chest. The call of the land. Every step she took on that soil seemed to awaken ancient memories of helping her parents on the farm, of knowing each plant by name and exactly when to plant and harvest. "This land has good water," she murmured to herself, noticing the deeper green in certain areas and the presence of frogs, natural indicators of springs. "And the tall weeds aren't a plague. They're the protection God sent while the land waited for me." The initial disappointment soon gave way to a surprising determination. the kind that only blooms in hearts that have weathered many storms. Despite her non-existent savings and advanced age, Martha decided to restore the property. Not to sell it and ensure comfort in her final years, as the lawyer suggested, but to finally have her own corner of the world, a piece of ground to call her own, and perhaps leave as a legacy for the grandchildren she rarely saw. Her first obstacle appeared when the local bank denied her a loan due to her age and lack of collateral. The manager, a young man who could have been her grandson, explained with polite embarrassment that people of advanced age represent a financial risk to the institution. The words, though wrapped in politeness, cut like a sharp knife. "Young man, if age were a barrier, Saint Joseph wouldn't have raised Jesus, and Noah wouldn't have built the ark," she replied, with the sharp wisdom of someone who had lived long enough to recognize injustices wrapped in regulations. The second obstacle arose when local builders refused to take the job, considering the project unfeasible. "Mrs. Martha, you'd need to tear everything down and start from scratch, with all due respect, but this is a job for a younger man with money in his pocket," said the foreman, unaware of how his words further fueled the elderly woman's determination. In the 3 months following the inheritance, Martha visited the property every day, walking the 2.5 miles separating her rented house from the land. Gradually, with the help of some borrowed tools and a lot of manual labor, she began clearing the weeds around the main house. Each weed pulled, each branch pruned, was accompanied by prayers and conversations with the saints she revered, as if each act of caring for the land was also an act of faith. People in town started talking about the stubborn old woman playing farmer. Some laughed at her ambition, seemingly disproportionate to her strength. Others secretly admired her persistence, though few offered concrete help. In a community where everyone struggled with their own difficulties, there was little time left to support others' dreams. During a particularly fierce storm in April, when the sky opened up over the region with a fury that seemed intent on washing away the world's injustices, Martha was on the property, trying to improvise protection for the vegetable seedlings she had started planting. The wind howled through the trees like a lost soul, and lightning zigzagged across the sky in golden flashes, momentarily illuminating the determined face of the elderly woman. Suddenly, a deafening crash. The roof of the main house, already compromised by years of neglect, collapsed completely under the weight of the water. Martha ran inside, not fearing the loss of the structure, but concerned about the few pieces of furniture she had managed to restore and bring there in recent weeks. Soaked by the rain and sitting among the rubble of what was supposed to be her new home, her tears mingled with the rainwater now falling freely inside the roofless house. Was this a sign from God that she should give up? Was her ambition to have her own place an affront to the heavenly designs that had destined her for simplicity? As these doubts tormented her weary heart, her eyes caught something strange amidst the debris. A section of the wooden floor, now exposed by the falling ceiling debris, looked different. Approaching, she realized one of the floorboards was slightly raised, as if hiding something. With hands trembling from age and emotion, Martha managed to lift the board, revealing a small secret compartment. There, protected from moisture by an old tarp, she found an intact carved wooden box. The box, intricately worked with motifs of flowers and birds in hardwood, seemed out of place in the ruined house, a forgotten treasure from more prosperous times. Opening the box, she found several yellowed documents and a small leather-bound notebook. Her calloused hands turned the pages carefully, as if handling sacred relics. There, written in Mr. Evans' elegant handwriting, were detailed records about the property, including information forgotten for decades. The land wasn't just any piece of the Appalachian countryside. It was located directly above a spring of exceptionally high-quality mineral water. In 1963, laboratory analyses confirmed that the water from this spring possesses mineral properties comparable to the best European sources. Martha read aloud, as if to confirm she wasn't dreaming. "I kept this information secret to protect the resource from predatory exploitation, awaiting the right moment for its sustainable development." It was as if heaven, after tearing down her roof, had given her a new foundation. far more valuable. Martha clutched the box to her chest, while the rain continued to fall on her, no longer as punishment, but as a baptism for a new chapter. The following days were ones of intense mental activity for Martha. What should she do with this information? How could she turn a mineral water spring into something that could ensure not only her survival, but also honor the trust Mr. Evans had placed in her? With the wisdom of years, she knew that certain gifts come with responsibilities. A week after the discovery, during Sunday Mass, Martha heard the priest talk about how God-given talents should not be buried, but multiplied for the benefit of all. The parable resonated in her heart, as if written especially for her at that moment. Leaving the church, she approached Mr. Henderson, president of the local farmers' cooperative, a man respected for his honesty and community vision. With a box of documents under her arm and courage renewed by the gospel message, she presented her idea: transform the property into a small mineral water company that could generate jobs for the community. Initially, Mr. Henderson and the other co-op board members received the proposal with polite skepticism. How could a woman nearing 70, with no business experience and no capital, start such a complex venture? Mineral water requires environmental permits, specific equipment, marketing strategies, knowledge that seemed so distant from the reality of a woman who had spent her life between the stove and the garden. Mrs. Martha, you make the best chicken and dumplings I've ever tasted, but business is another story, one of the directors said, provoking restrained laughter in the meeting room. But the age that denied her the bank loan had given her something far more valuable: the persistence of someone who had seen many no's turn into yeses with time. She began attending every co-op meeting, always bringing samples of the water and reporting the small improvements she managed to make on the property with minimal resources. What I lack in money, I make up for in time and willingness, she repeated like a mantra. While distributing shortbread cookies, she spent hours baking in her wood-fired oven to bring to the meetings. Gradually, her perseverance began to inspire some of the younger co-op members, especially David, a recent agricultural science graduate who had returned to his hometown with innovative ideas about sustainable rural development. He offered to help Martha with the technical aspects of the project, including modern water analysis and environmental licensing applications. My grandmother always said you had eyes that could see water in the desert, David commented, while collecting spring samples to send to the lab. Now I understand what she meant. 6 months after donating her coins at the church, a gesture that now seemed both distant and significant, laboratory analyses confirmed what the old documents indicated. The spring water possessed an exceptional mineral composition, with ideal levels of calcium, magnesium, and other trace elements beneficial to health. The technical report, with its colorful charts and scientific terms Martha could barely pronounce, became her most precious object, kept beside the picture of the Virgin Mary on her nightstand. With these results in hand, the cooperative finally agreed to consider the project seriously. A small committee was formed to study the business's feasibility, and news of the potential new company began circulating in the region, attracting investors' attention. On an August afternoon, when the Appalachian sky was painted an almost painfully intense blue, an expensive sedan parked at the property entrance. An executive in a dark suit carrying a leather briefcase stepped out, representing a large beverage company. He brought a proposal that, 6 months earlier, would have seemed hallucinatory. They wanted to buy Martha's land for a value exponentially higher than its original assessment. You can sell now and guarantee a comfortable old age, free from worry, the man explained, offering a preliminary contract with so many zeros it made Martha's eyes well up. Or you can risk embarking on a venture that might take years to turn a profit, if it ever does. The offer was as tempting as a siren song. It represented immediate financial security, the possibility of buying a comfortable house in town, paying for medical treatments without waiting in line at the local clinic, perhaps even traveling to visit her distant children. It was the practical, sensible solution any financial advisor would recommend for someone her age. Martha asked for a week to think. During those days, she divided her time between intense prayers, conversations with Louise, and long walks around the property, as if wanting every tree and stone to participate in her decision. On one of these walks, she encountered Father John, who had come to visit a sick family nearby. The conversation that followed changed everything. The priest, known for his social work in the community, casually mentioned something Martha didn't know. Her former boss, Mr. Evans, had a deep connection to the local community. He had secretly built the irrigation system that saved many farms during the Great Drought of 1970, an act of generosity for which he never sought public recognition. He always said that water is a divine blessing that should be shared, not monopolized, the priest commented, unaware of how his words resonated with Martha's current dilemma. The revelation made Martha question whether selling the property would truly be the best way to honor the legacy of the man who entrusted her with that piece of land. Would it be right to turn something that could benefit so many people into individual profit? The novenas for the patron saint's feast day approached, bringing new dilemmas and the decision of whether or not to sell the property. The scent of candles and incense filled the century-old church for 9 consecutive nights, while Martha sought divine guidance for her choice. Between one Hail Mary and the next, between one mystery of the Rosary and another, she felt the answer growing in her heart, like a plant finally finding fertile soil. On the last day of the novena, after the procession carrying the saint's statue, through streets decorated with colored sawdust patterns, Martha communicated her decision to the company representative, who waited anxiously. She refused the multi-million-dollar offer. Instead, she proposed a partnership with the local small farmers to create a mineral water cooperative that would benefit the entire community. My boss entrusted this land to me not so I could get rich, but so I could continue his work of making this water a blessing for many, she explained with a clarity that surprised even herself. The decision divided the town. Some considered her a visionary, a true community leader who placed the collective good above personal gain. Others thought her foolish for refusing so much money, especially considering her age and precarious financial condition. In conversations on the town square, in lines at the bakery, on the church pews, Martha's name was mentioned with admiration or pity, depending on the speaker. Her own son, who briefly returned to town upon hearing about the refused offer, questioned her sanity. "Mom, you could have bought an apartment in Charlotte near your grandkids. How could you throw away this opportunity for an impossible dream?" The criticism hurt, but no more than the many other pains she had faced in life. With the determination of someone who had weathered many storms, she moved forward, now working with the cooperative committee to make the mineral water project viable. 8 months after her gesture of generosity in the church, when engineers hired by the cooperative began drilling to better access the spring and install the collection system, they found something unexpected. The vein of water was much larger than the old documents indicated. The discovery multiplied the potential value of the business, attracting regional media attention and even larger investors. "It's as if the earth was guarding this secret until it found the right hands to reveal it," commented David, the young agricultural scientist, marveling at the crystal-clear water now gushing forcefully from the newly drilled well. The project's growing visibility attracted not only allies but also complications. Mr. Evans's grandson, a businessman in the city disgruntled at not having inherited the property as expected, contested the will's validity. With financial resources far superior to those of the humble cooperative, he hired expensive lawyers to initiate a legal battle for control of the property. When the legal notice reached Martha's hands, fear threatened to undermine her confidence for the first time since this journey began. How could she face lawyers and courts? How could she defend her right to that land when she barely understood the legal terms used in the documents? The community, however, seeing the risk of losing the economic opportunity that had already begun to revitalize the region, rallied around Martha. Farmers, merchants, public school teachers, even the mayor. Everyone recognized that the mineral water project represented more than just a business. It was the chance to breathe new life into the small town that had been losing its youth to large cities year after year. A group of local lawyers offered to defend the case pro bono, driven both by a sense of justice and the realization that the development brought by the cooperative would also benefit their own businesses in the future. Martha's cause thus became the cause of the entire town. During the traditional harvest festival, when residents give thanks for the year's bounty with traditional dances to the sound of fiddles and accordions, and stalls sell homemade treats prepared from recipes passed down through generations, Martha had a bold idea. It wasn't born of calculations or sophisticated strategies, but from the wisdom only years can bestow, the kind that sees bridges where others see only chasms. She proposed to the contesting grandson, who was visiting the town for a meeting with his lawyers, a partnership where part of the profits would be directed to social projects in the region, including a vocational school for young farmers. Something that, she said, would make Mr. Evans smile down from heaven. The proposal, made publicly in the town square decorated with colorful banners, before nearly the entire population gathered for the festival, put the man in a delicate position. Refusing would mean admitting his interest was purely financial, without consideration for his grandfather's legacy or the well-being of the community that had meant so much to his family in the past. "Son, life's too short for long disputes," Martha said, extending her wrinkled hand to the man in the impeccable suit. "Your grandfather taught me that good water is best drunk from glasses clean of resentment." 10 months after the donation of the coins, when negotiations between the parties seemed stalled on legal details and percentages, an unexpected event changed the course of history again. A former employee of the late Mr. Evans, now living in another region, learned about the dispute through a newspaper report and decided to intervene. He traveled to the town bringing handwritten letters from his former boss, kept for decades, which unequivocally confirmed his intention to benefit Martha. The letters also revealed something no one knew. During a particularly difficult time in Mr. Evans's life, when he faced bankruptcy after a severe frost destroyed his coffee plantation, it was Martha's mother who secretly helped him, offering her life savings so he wouldn't lose his lands. A loan he never forgot, and which, in his own words in the letters, created a debt of gratitude that not even 1,000 lifetimes could fully repay. The discovery eliminated the grounds for the legal challenge, proving not only the will's authenticity, but also the moral justice behind it. Even so, surprising everyone, Martha maintained the partnership offered to Mr. Evans's grandson, demonstrating that her generosity remained unshaken even in the face of adversity. "I don't want to win, I want to build," she explained, with the profound simplicity that characterized her wisdom. And building alone is much harder than building together. Moved by this gesture, and perhaps also pressured by local public opinion, now entirely in favor of the mineral water lady, as the newspapers had dubbed her, the grandson accepted the proposal, bringing administrative knowledge and business contacts that perfectly complemented Martha's community vision. The unlikely partnership between the woman nearing 70 and the executive from the city turned out to be extraordinarily fruitful. While she ensured the project maintained its community roots and principles of sustainable development, he accelerated bureaucratic processes and attracted strategic investors. A full year after that fateful day in the church, when Martha deposited her last coins in the donation box, the first bottle of Providence Spring mineral water was bottled in a ceremony that brought the entire community together. The label, designed by local schoolchildren, featured a stylized image of elderly hands holding a glass of water, with the phrase, "From Faith Spring Miracles," written in golden letters. Martha, now honorary president of the cooperative and a minority shareholder in the company created in partnership with Mr. Evans's grandson, watched with teary eyes as her act of faith transformed not only her life, but the economy of the entire region. The plant, built with low environmental impact technology, already employed 23 people from the community, with plans for expansion in the coming months. Standing beside the main spring, where the purest water gushed continuously like a symbol of the abundance that had always been there, just waiting to be discovered, Martha thought about how life takes turns more surprising than the winding Appalachian roads. She remembered the anguish of that day in the church, the weight of those coins in her hand, the choice between keeping them for herself or trusting in divine providence. As the sun set behind the Appalachian Mountains, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, she understood that the true fortune she received from heaven wasn't the money or the recognition, but the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of so many people. Like the spring water, which travels silently underground before emerging to quench the thirst of many, true generosity always finds its way to the surface, even when it seems lost in the depths of sacrifice. "You plant faith and harvest hope," she murmured to herself, walking slowly towards her new house built near the spring. Not a mansion she could have bought had she sold the land, but a cozy home from where she could daily contemplate the fruit of her trust in the unseen. That night, before falling asleep, Martha placed a new, shiny coin in the same wooden box where she had found the spring documents, a reminder for the future, for whoever might come after her, that the greatest wealth lies not in what we keep for ourselves, but in what we offer the world with open hands and a trusting heart.